We're into it, folks. The Lions have played their first game of the 2025 tour and they've recorded a handsome win, but it's fair to say that they were puffing in Perth. Hello amateurs, welcome back to the channel, and I'm going to be here with you throughout the Lions series and beyond, so hit subscribe to follow along. Okay, before the game, and this is one of the great things about the Lions tour, I think, as an Englishman, I get to hear the voices of the people from the other nations a lot more. Like, I don't think I've ever heard many of the Irish players speak before. But it was great to hear from Dan Sheehan before this game in the lead up as captain, just talking about the squad and everything that's going on. And then going into the actual pre-game, I was just like, his boots. Wow, what a pair of footwear they were. Pretty damn leery. Also on kit watch, I love the Western Force kit. I love a collar on a rugby shirt, but I've got to say they were maybe pushing the envelope with the size of those collars that they were wearing today. But great kits all round. Okay, let's get into the game. The title's there, puffing in Perth, and I think that sums up a lot of what the Lions did today. I thought across the board for the majority of this game, they all looked very tired, like from early on as well, from sort of 10 minutes in. Was it jet lag? Is it potentially like they're training a little bit hard at the moment because they want to optimise for the test series? Is it no rest after the end of a very long season? It wasn't hot that in Australia, but it was quite humid. Was it that? And as we go into the game, was it ball in play time? Because the ball seemed to be in play a heck of a lot, and there were some lengthy periods of play in this game. Whatever it was, potentially a combination of all those things, but I thought the players looked heavy. I thought they looked heavy today, but that's probably to be expected. Okay, let's get into this game. And the Lions started off going through some really nice phase play. And in contrast to the Argentina game, they were actually really direct, hitting the lead runner for the vast majority of the times in the opening couple of minutes until they run out a little bit of juice. But Finn Russell, no dramas, he's the magician, cross-kick to Dan Sheehan, who caught it and then tapped it back before landing on the ground to James Lowe, who managed to get an offload back into Sheehan for 7-0 after 2 minutes. And it just looked like, well, that was almost too easy. But that was a trend throughout the game. The Lions had the ball and they were able to maintain possession. Western Force got the ball straight back because Cummins missed the kickoff. And many phases later, Nick White eventually ducked under a tackle to make it 7-7. And Nick White was influential, very influential, in the fact that Lions had a really poor return from receiving kickoffs. His variation of kicks, the flat ones, he always seemed to be able to find space and a spot where the Lions couldn't get a good lift and jump to claim the ball, which led, I think, to at the 60-minute mark, the Lions were 1 from 7 in kickoff receipts, which is a really poor return. And what that does is just, you've scored. What you want to do is clear your lines, get into their half. That's pretty much what most teams want to do as the result of receiving a kickoff. And the Lions couldn't do that. It meant that Western Force got possession in the Lions' territory. And we'll get onto it later. There's a reason, I think, why they were able to maintain possession for so long. Ty Byrne gave a couple of dumb penalties away early on as well. The second one, particularly dumb. The referee was literally talking straight to him. That's a ruck, get your hands off. And he left them in there, correctly penalised. But there's a nice thing here from the Western Force, because this was like 7 metres out, pretty much directly in front of the posts. And they kicked for the corner. So that immediately tells me we're going to see a right style of rugby for a game like this. They went for it, but they couldn't really get over. Lions defended them all pretty well, but there were more pens coming. And it was a yellow card warning after only 11 minutes. Western Force went to the corner again, but Joe McCarthy came up with his first big play of the night. He went on to be player of the match, and with a brilliant maul turnover, just muscled his way through there and took it away. Fantastic work. The Lions benefited from that with Pollock. Some cracking interplay with Josh van der Fleer, and I thought the pair of them actually were outstanding tonight. Both of them being able to carry long and deep by using their footwork and their power in those little 2 inches in front of contact, getting away and making ground consistently, and a very high tackle count between the pair of them as well. I thought they went together very well. Pollock tipped it to van der Fleer. Van der Fleer got it back to Pollock, and Pollock had to really fight to get on that support line. I think it was the second row, name escapes me, but he had to fight past that second row to get on that support line, beat the fullback, and then found the offload. Not the first one, because Russell was his first option, but Thomas Williams in a brilliant support line got the offload for 14 points to 7. Again, Lions didn't get the kickoff back, which led to, as I've already mentioned, the Western Force just enduring the majority of territory and possession in these first 20 minutes. And the Lions were defending, but they looked slow off the line. They didn't look all that physical. I think Western Force were probably just getting the nudge in most of the contact situations. But the Lions tried some really intricate phase play from a set piece. I think it was from a line out, and all these beautiful intricate movements, passes, lines, but it was just a bit off. It wasn't flowing. It was a bit clunky. And the set plays weren't working. They looked good when the game broke up and they were playing on instinct. They got so many intelligent footballers that was the real point of difference. But the set piece, it just wasn't quite flowing quite as well as it could. There was almost an incredible 50-22 from James Lowe, who interacted with Daly on the touchline. Daly almost getting pushed out to touch. It would have been a phenomenal effort, but as it was a scrum all the way back in Lions territory. Again, more territory and possession for the Western Force. And at this point, Ty Furlong was struggling in the scrum. He went backwards at quite a rate off this scrum on the Western Force ball. And 2 minutes later, the Lions, I think it was a knock on by the Western Force, scrum to Lions, and Ty Furlong took a knee as quick as I've seen any player take a knee ever. He pretended to pull turf out of his boots, and unbelievable professionalism. Like, he was clearly blowing. He clearly knew he'd just been pumped in the last scrum, and he knew on their own ball he needed to lock down this scrum, and he absolutely did it. So although he struggled a little bit at times, I thought in the scrum, I thought, sometimes he looks a little bit high for me. That was brilliant. Experience and knowledge to just give himself the moment to get the air back in the lungs, compose himself, and then lock out a scrum. Another key theme of this first half was Gary Ringrose's physicality. Oh my goodness me, he was running around smashing people. However, it did leave gaps around him. Western Force got through a couple of them, and I'm sure Joe Schmidt will be looking at that. I mean, Joe Schmidt probably already knows this. It's not no big secret. Gary Ringrose likes to put the physical on. They'll be probably, if Ringrose is going to play in the Test series, they'll be working out ways that they can attack the spaces either side of him. Ringrose smacked his opposite number and Hansen had a chance to pick up and score, but in this fatigued state that the Lions were in, that is a time where a hamstring really could go. He had to reach down to his bootlaces but couldn't quite pick it up. And people were walking. There was lung-busting phases at this point of the game, 35 minutes in, and the players were, there was kick tennis at times, and, some people were trying to run the ball back, and it was just, a lot of the type 5 forwards were just holding ground in the middle of the pitch. The Lions won a penalty, and Finn Russell was just looking towards a corner, slowly eyeing up the corner, looking where he's going to kick, but in the background he was waving Henry Pollock to just stay right and keep his eyes up, and it was brilliant awareness, and for the other Lions players as well to follow him. Henry Pollock ran the support line, but Russell went through the gap and managed to get the offload to Daly for the try. There was a kerfuffle, shall we call it that, in the aftermath. I initially thought Pollock was upset that he kind of got tripped or pushed on his support line. Actually, I don't really think that's what happened at all. I just think he wanted to have a little bit of push and shove, and I don't mind that at all. Shortly afterwards, Pollock got a yellow card himself, and it seemed harsh at the time. Remember, that yellow card warning was all the way back on the 11th minute, and it was given for repeated infringements, and it was a penalty. Well, he was given as a penalty deep in Lions territory, about 5 metres from the line. So I guess there's reason to say that that's okay. From the TV angle, it did look like Pollock had released, but I can absolutely see from where the referee was stood, it might have absolutely not looked like he released at all. So no question from me on the penalty itself. The referee's got to give what he sees. But there was some awesome maul defence from another person that I've already mentioned. That was Josh van der Fleer. He just wriggled himself through, managed to get in, and he's so strong at holding players up. He's done it throughout his career in a choke tackle scenario, and he did it here to make sure the Lions didn't concede on the brink of half-time. And I thought for Western Force, Peach on the wing and Roberts at the loose head in particular, I thought had really strong games. I also thought Ollie Hoskins, playing his last game of rugby ever, did a brilliant job in the scrum and round the pitch. I thought he had a really, really good first half. Start the second half. Guess what? Kick off to the Lions. Lions don't get it. And they were under 5 minutes of pressure as a result. Just in their half, just battling away, just trying to keep Western Force out, who are playing phase after phase after phase after phase. Eventually, the Lions forced a turnover, and this was a real good thing, I thought, from the Lions. I thought they did this repeatedly well throughout the game. When they got a turnover, when they got a sniff of space about something, they moved, like, players came alive. They moved the ball there quickly, and then there's intelligence all throughout this Lions backline. And it was Hansen who straightened, went through a hole, gave it to James Lowe, Lowe to Williams, back to Lowe, back to Williams, who was over in the corner. And I mentioned hamstring pulls earlier. Thomas with the dive into the corner, I think a high hamstring pull, hopefully not a tear on his left-hand side. I felt okay about it initially because he kind of stood up and was like, oh, no, that's all right, I'm going to try and play on. But then rightfully, they got him off that pitch as soon as they could, get ice on that, get compression on it and just minimise the damage as best as possible because he'd had a very good game up to that point. So fingers crossed for Thomas. Hopefully he comes through to play further part in this tour. And then, joy of joys, Lions win a kickoff. The first one that they won in the game. They got a beautifully clean exit, got a kick pressure on and won a penalty. That's it. If they could have done that for every kickoff in this game, I think it would have looked so different. So different. But it was a tricky day for that for sure. New relationships in jumpers and lifters, and they talked about it in comms. It is one of the toughest skills in rugby. I used to do it for a little while, and you'd have players, particularly at the junior club level, right? Because it needs to be a drop kick to get the correct flight of the ball so you can learn to read that. A punt is no good. So you didn't get enough reps because very few people could drop kick the ball consistently. So it's a tough thing to do, even for the pros. Very tough skill. Shortly after that, there were mass changes for the Lions. And I thought potentially it might have come a bit sooner, looking at the amount of fatigue that was in these players. But it was numbers 1, 3, 4, 6 and 9 all off the pitch. And it's got to be said, those people came on, added some energy. And not surprisingly, this was a fast and furious game, huge ball in play time. So coming on fresh at that point. And as a player on the bench, you've witnessed that as well. You're looking at it going, oh, they look tired. So that probably amps you up even more to go and really make a difference. And I think most of those players did that came on. Gary Ringrose got his try from a very solid performance, and this was an example of absolutely beautiful hands from the Lions. You only see it on one replay, but the key point for this try was Sione Tuipulotu looping round and coming in as the second receiver off Finn Russell, and he did it so late that the Western Force couldn't really number up, and then it was just hands. Really simple hands. You've done it a million times in training. Hansen made the break back inside for Ringrose to score the try, and at 33-7, that was the game done. I mean, it was probably done before that, but it really felt like that was a full stop. Joe McCarthy got a try for his incredible work rate all day long. And this was after Henry Pollock picked up it was a knock on, I think. He picked it up, chipped over, regathered, stepped somebody, got tackled. But for me, the best part of what Henry Pollock did in that little phase there was he looked for an offload and then rolled again. And as he rolled to his front, he realised that if he then went and pushed the ball back to present it for a ruck, he would likely get penalised for giving that extra roll. So as he went round to his front, he left the ball there on the floor, stood up and replayed it again. I thought the intelligence in that was actually superior to the skill of the chip in the case and the regather as well. It's super smart play by Henry Pollock in that regard. Also amazing part of play that led to the McCarthy try was Josh van der Fleer. His awareness that all the space was on the outside. He caught it standing still so the defence couldn't get to him, and then just threw a big over-the-top pass to McCarthy to sort of stroll into the corner. Brilliant again from van der Fleer. Another example of how Pollock and van der Fleer worked really, really well together. Andrew Porter was on the pitch, and I think Ellis Genge's performance against Argentina had him revved up because he had Ollie Hoskins airborne for one scrum. I mean, Hoskins put in an incredible shift, and there's no there's no shame in getting beaten by Porter, who's coming on snorting in that regard. But yeah, it was a tough last few scrums in his professional career for Ollie Hoskins, for sure. 60 minutes gone, the game is absolutely dead. And in my mind, I'm thinking what the Lions management will want now is no more injuries, absolutely no more injuries. And Hugh Jones was on the pitch at this point, and Marcus Smith came on for Finn Russell at that point as well. Now, in my mind, am I thinking this is a chance for Marcus Smith to play fly half? Or am I thinking this is primarily the Lions management taking their probable test fly half off the pitch and out of harm's way? Arguably it's both, but I think it's probably more the latter. Hugh Jones and Sione Tuapoloto were looking immediately dangerous, but Hugh Jones got scragged just short of the line. There was a Elliot Daly try, it looked so easy for them. And I was saying in my head, just before they did it, they need to sweep back right. They're going to sweep back right. And it was kind of obvious, really. The Lions were driving towards the posts, and that blind side was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was never getting filled with Western Force players. But the key bit for this that I want to pick out is that Alex Smith actually picked the ball and went left, and Marcus Smith went right. That pass from Mitchell to Smith is a really difficult one. When they're running in different directions like that, to get that in front of the player exactly the right spot is a very difficult skill. And Mitchell did it perfectly. And by the way, I think it was right that he stepped left, because that encouraged all the defenders to stay there. Smith went round the corner. Daly was hiding in behind, and he walked in for his second try. Elliot Daly, by the way, who was a very, very solid performer today. I thought he had an excellent outing himself. Alex Mitchell got a try towards the end after really good passes from Daly, Tuapoloto and Mac Hansen. And again, I'm highlighting those players because I talk about the intelligence of these players, the natural sort of footballing ability to see space, to choose the right pass, to get it to where it needs to go. And I think the Lions have got a lot of players like that. So if they can get to an unstructured game, if they can get into those positions, I think they're really, really well set to take advantage of positions like that. And that was the game. 54-7, Western Force put in a fantastic shift and were very competitive for the vast majority of this game. And that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see integrity in this fixture. I wanted to see integrity in the tour. Hopefully, all the other Super Rugby sides will provide the same. What are my takeaways from this? I would say primarily, and this is from early in the game because I think they had to be, the Lions were just a bit more direct in their phase play. They hit that lead runner much more often than they did against Argentina. I think they've clearly looked at that and gone, yeah, we went side to side. We didn't really commit many players, so our individuals didn't have the chance to shine. Lions were more direct today, and I think they benefited from that. Standout players, I've already mentioned them several times. Van der Fleer, Pollock, McCarthy for me in the forwards, but I also thought Chesham and Porter came on and added real oomph when they came on. And I thought all the backs actually had really good games. I don't think any of them really stood out because they all did their job and they all had moments where they just chose the right option, where they just made the right pass. There were mistakes. There's always going to be when the game's that fatigued, when the players are that tired. But overall, I think the Lions will be pretty happy with this. I think the backs will want to tidy up their set plays a little bit from lineouts and scrums. I think they'll want to look a little bit more fluid and a bit more incisive there for sure. But in broken field, they were excellent. The other big work on for the Lions, obviously, is the kickoff receipts. That was a poor outing for them today. That's a poor outing for any side. So they'll be working on that, I'm sure, a lot this week and hopefully make good progress. But it's got to be said, the kickoffs were lethal. Like, they were really good kickoffs, so it was a challenging day in that regard. And to finish, there was a phenomenal point made in commentary by Will Greenwood about the lack of jackal penalties awarded. There were none. They think there were none. I agree. I don't remember a single jackal penalty being awarded today. What did you think about that? Well, I thought it was such an interesting point that I've recorded an entire video about it, what it could mean going forward. Was this just a one-off? Is it a trend? What's it going to mean for Lions selection? And, helpfully, I've put it for you just there.